Take just one thought of love and pass it on, pass it on. Take just one thought of love and pass it on. With just one thought of love, we are blessing one another. Take just one thought of love and pass it on. Be just one ray of hope and pass it on, pass it on. Be just one ray of hope and pass it on. With just one ray of hope, we are shining for each other. Be just one ray of hope and pass it on. Say just one prayer of peace and pass it on, pass it on. Say just one prayer of peace and pass it on. With just one prayer of peace, we can hear the word together. Say just one prayer of peace and pass it on. We are one thought of love, so pass it on, pass it on. We are one ray of hope, just pass it on. We are one prayer of peace. We are shining for each other. We are love, hope, and peace, just pass it on. We are love, hope, and peace, pass it on.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So before we begin, I want to explain why Reverend Michelle isn't with us this morning. For those of you who haven't heard already, on Friday, Alexander, her son, experienced an appendicitis attack. She didn't know that that was what it was at the time, but they ended up at the emergency room Friday night, and very quickly it was diagnosed, and then they called in the surgeon, and they had it removed. And he's home. So everything is good. Michelle wants to thank everybody for all their prayers, and I'm sure she could use some continued prayers for ongoing healing and energy for her, because she was awake like 30 hours staying there at the hospital with Alexander. And any of you who have been in a hospital know that it's not a place that you sleep. So as you want. So anyway, she is good. Alexander's good, and they will be back with us next week. So there's a card in the back to sign, okay, on the back counter. Okay, great. So anybody who wants to sign a Get Well card, you can do that back there. So as most of you know, I'm Reverend Vicky Elder, and it is my joy and honor to welcome you to Unity of Monterey Bay, a beloved community co-created with love and intention that welcomes all people, all races, ages, cultures, ethnic backgrounds, economic circumstances, nationalities, and religions. Whatever your immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, family configuration, and or abilities, whether you're here with us in person or joining us virtually, we know that love knows no boundaries. We are one in spirit. As a purpose-driven church, Unity of Monterey Bay is an inclusive spiritual community committed to co-creating an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just, and compassionate human presence on this planet. We celebrate our oneness and honor the God of each of our understanding, affirming the innate good and divine essence within each and every individual. Would you please join me in our statement of faith? There is only one presence and one power in the universe, God the good, expressing as infinite God beyond us, intimate God beside us, inner God being us, divine love in action. And now as we allow this knowing to deepen within our souls and serve to awaken us into enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings, we share this prayer, Blessed are those who know the joy, from a Book of Blessings by Glenn Carty. Blessed are those who know the joy of a friend, parent, or child, who accept us without rhyme or reason or reward, who love us with a power that can withstand the assault of our doubt. Blessed are those who fall into the embrace of love, into the losing of doubt, the choosing of delight, the wonder and the pain of acceptance without the thought of gain. Blessed are those who awake to the gift, the giving, awaken to something other, and, surprisingly, without conditions. How strange is this? Isn't love like gold, needing to be paid for? Blessed are those who refuse to succumb or collude with the lies about love, that it has to be earned or a skill to be learnt. And we should be grateful like a beneficiary should. Blessed are those who give freely, unreservedly, all the love, respect, and strength they can, generously, without restraint. Love is like the rain. It falls, refreshes, sustains, and flows, watering our souls. And breathing into this moment of inner truth and gratitude, we affirm together, thank you, God, for this most amazing day. Miracle follows miracle, and wonders never cease. And now it's the time that we celebrate our children. We do that every week. We celebrate them whether they're here or whether they're distant, the children of our community, the children in our lives, and children in our broader communities, and all the children of the world. So if you feel like you'd like to get your inner child blessed, you're welcome to come on. Marianne is standing in for Walter. And so as we all embrace that inner child within us, will you join me in our blessing? We bless you, we bless you, we appreciate you just the way you are.
This bright light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This bright light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This bright light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Woo. So calling in the 4 directions. So now let's all take a deep breath in and let it out with an audible sigh. As we center ourselves to embrace the blissful inner connection with Spirit and invite the chime to call us into this sacred space within. We ring the chime 4 times to call in the 4 directions and remind us of our inner connection with all of creation in the sacred circle of life. As we feel it resonate through our very beings, we follow its call into this now present moment within. Continuing to focus on our breath, with each inhale, we open our hearts and minds. We envision our breath reaching every cell of our being. And with each exhale, we see all barriers and obstacles dissolving into the divine flow. And again, as we inhale, we expand the spaciousness within us. We move beyond the limitations and boundaries of our bodies. And as we exhale, we ground ourselves deep within Mother Earth and into our oneness with the universe. Finally, we breathe our awareness into the highest expression of love, light, joy, and peace that we can imagine, as we experience a transforming wave of gratitude. And with a fullness of heart, we say yes to it all, embracing, claiming, and knowing the divine Christ Spirit expressing in, through, and as us. And with a final exhale, we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Now, fully centered and transformed by the power of Spirit, we enter our lesson and meditation time with today's daily word.
We read from the July 12th daily word.
There.
We read from the publisher of Daily Word, shared with permission of Unity, publisher of Daily Word, that can be found at dailyword.com. And the word is divine order. I invite you to allow my words to be your words. Divine order is my constant blessing. Few things can lift me beyond the daily irritations and inconveniences of daily life better than simply affirming divine order. I shift my perspective with these two simple words, reminding myself that the things of the world may come and go, but the spiritual truth of order endures. I remember times of chaos and confusion when I couldn't imagine how things might work out, and yet they did. Divine order was at work then, just as it is at work now. As I align myself with spiritual truth, I no longer get rattled when my plans go awry or there are hiccups in my itinerary. I free myself from anxiety and worry by living as a spiritual being I am, cooperating with the order that undergirds all things. And from scriptures, commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. Proverbs 16:3.
I am that I am has brought me to this now moment. Here I am. I am that I am has brought me to this now moment. Here I am to be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. To be the voice and to be the heart through which heaven is made known on earth. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am.
In witness to the wisdom of the many paths to the sacred, we read from 4 scriptures from 3 sacred traditions on this morning's topic, co-creating our reality. From Sikhism, contemplating the word brings a benevolent attitude. Destroying self-pride brings austerity's fruits. The one who has heard the word is liberated in life. Right conduct brings true peace. From Buddhism, the key to happiness is peace of mind. This is not something that can be bought. Inner peace has to be cultivated by each of us from within. The basic source of all happiness is a sense of kindness and warm-heartedness towards others. From Christianity, finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. From Philippians 4:8. So faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead. James 2:17.
Love is my decision. It's up to me to give of my heart. Love is my decision. No one else can tell me to start. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to stand on that bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to dance down the road. Love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. Up to me to dance down the road. Love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. My decision right here and now.
that's definitely one of those songs that I could say, well, there's your lesson. But of course, I have a few additional comments. So we're in our third week of our Unity Basics series, where we're exploring the Unity's 5 basic principles. As I shared in this week's e-blast, my preparation for this particular basic series has taken me on a journey into the history of Unity, which I admit I have not spent a lot of time exploring. Get it in bits and pieces now and then, but it isn't something that's memorized in my consciousness. And as I thought about why that is, I realized that it reveals a lot about our founders. In fact, more about our founders than it reveals about me, because their focus was always on the truth being revealed through them and us, and not on their human identities. In today's vernacular, the Fillmores were mission-driven, which gratefully prevented any kind of personality cult from developing around them. So our focus in Unity has always been on the enlightenment and truth that they shared and demonstrated in their lives, not about their personal histories, and it's always forward-looking. Now, that being said, I do think it's relevant and even inspirational for us to have some understanding of our Unity roots as we explore our Unity basics, which is why I shared about Connie Fillmore Bazzi's background in the e-blast this last week, she being the original author of these 5 principles that we're looking at that never show up in the same format twice, but nevertheless, she was the one who was asked to, if she could, easily explain Unity's view on universal laws of life, and this is what she came up with. And it's why I want to start this morning with a little bit more relevant background about our founders. TruthUnity.org, a website that Michelle and I often refer to, has the largest collection of digitized Unity resources that exists, even more than Unity Village. I found a series there by Eric Butterworth. How many of you know who Eric Butterworth is? He wrote the best-selling book, Discover the Power Within You. It's like second to Lessons in Truth as the Unity primer, one of the first books that is often given to people when they're first interested in Unity. In fact, Oprah Winfrey recommended it and said it changed her life. So that just gives you a little bit of background about Butterworth. He was writing in the 60s, and so when I was first in Unity, his examples and everything were very timely. Now, of course, they're even out of date, but the language is definitely more timely than the Fillmores who were writing in the late 1890s and early part of the 20th century. He had in this website a series of lessons called The Antecedents of New Thought, wherein he describes Charles Fillmore. Sorry. That's my Siri going off. She's hearing my voice. I turned it on to just push up. Sorry about that. God is speaking. Time for us all to listen. So he described Charles Fillmore as a kind of spiritual researcher who tested principles by the fruits that they bore. In other words, according to Butterworth, Fillmore would apply or practice a spiritual insight that had come to him. He'd work with it in the silence and in meditation and in his own personal work and living. And if it worked for him, then he would teach it. If it didn't work, he would reject it. And even if it worked for a while and he suddenly found that maybe he had overemphasized it, he would just say, well, I've changed my mind. What Fillmore was demonstrating, and Unity continues to teach, is that while universal truth never changes, our human understanding of it continues to evolve as we grow in both scientific and worldly knowledge and spiritual consciousness. Fillmore was always one that believed that if it's all one, there's no conflict between science and our spiritual understanding. That's why the movement was called Science of Mind, and Christian Science and New Thought is about applying these principles in a scientific way. That means we're called to a both-and stance. surprise, surprise, right? Of knowing and living the truth that speaks to our hearts in this moment while staying open to continually evolve in our understanding. In another example of this approach, Charles Fillmore responded to what he described as many requests for our attitude towards certain tenets of the Christian religion. That's a debate that is still going on today, believe it or not. And what he did is he responded with Unity's Statement of Faith that was published in the April 1921 Unity magazine. It was comprised of 32 tenets demonstrating Unity's alignment with traditional Christian doctrines, but bulwarked, in essence fortified in Fillmore's words, by an understanding of the underlying spiritual laws upon which the church bases its doctrine. In essence, it was Fillmore's metaphysical understanding of all these doctrines. Additionally, Fillmore added this caveat at the conclusion of the document. We have considered the restrictions that will follow a formulated platform and are hereby giving warning that we shall not be bound by this tentative statement of what Unity believes. We may change our minds tomorrow or some of the points, and if we do, we shall feel free to make a new statement of faith in harmony with the new viewpoint. Now, I bring all this up to emphasize once again how we approach these unity principles. They're fundamental, but they're not dogma. And actually, it's why I think I like the shorthand that we use. God is, I am, I think, I pray, I do. Because that shorthand helps us remember what the principles are so we can keep them central in our life. But it also invites us to bring our own highest and continually evolving understanding of their meaning. And just to keep us on our toes, this morning I'm going to even evolve one of our shorthand phrases, replacing the I do with I live. And I'll share more about that in a bit. So it'll be God is, I am, I think, I pray, I live. So with that introduction into Unity's history, let's turn to today's focus on these third and fifth principles, I think and I live, or do, with my current descriptions. So I think we are co-creators with God, creating our reality through thoughts held in mind. And its parallel principle, I live, through thoughts, words, and actions. We live the truth we know. Now, I'm combining these two principles today because they actually are integral to one another. As today's second Christian scripture states, so faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead. It isn't enough to believe principles and practice repeating them. We have to live them into our lives. So these two principles depend upon one another. But I'm going to start with the first, I think, which begins with acknowledging that, created in the image and likeness of God, we too are mind beings, co-creating in the same fashion, in essence, mind, idea, expression, which is Unity's understanding of the Trinity. God is divine mind, Christ is the Christ idea, and the Spirit is expression or creation as we experience it. Fillmore explains in the Revealing Word and the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary that by the term mind, with a capital M, we mean God, the universal principle of causation, which includes all principles. For example, mathematics is a principle that illustrates exact and inexorable laws that are one with the manifestations of God mind. He also suggests that as an aid to understanding how universal mind creates, we can observe the action of our own minds, because we're the offspring of the one mind, and we bring forth or create in like manner, in essence, through the thoughts, including related beliefs, attitudes, and feelings that we hold in mind, and our ensuing actions that flow from the ideas we create. We refer to this process of creation as the law of mind action, or the law of attraction. Other common affirmations describing this principle include energy flows where attention goes, or like attracts like, or, as Wayne Dyer put it, change the way you look at things and the things you look at will change. And one of our favorites, life happens from the inside out. Now, this teaching is central to many Eastern traditions like Buddhism and Taoism, which is likely where New Thought practitioners discovered it. I read in one book that it was New Thought practitioners that brought this. I went, yeah, not really. It existed. They evidently discovered it and recognized it, and like Fillmore, began to recognize it throughout other wisdom teachings like Judeo-Christianity. It started bringing that understanding to the statements. As if you study Fillmore's books and metaphysical dictionary and such, you'll see how he interprets all of these truths in that same alignment with mind action. Now, I was first introduced to this idea of mind action, though it wasn't called that, through LifeSpring. How many of you have heard of LifeSpring? It was one of the human potential trainings that emerged in the 70s alongside of EST. But it was unity that helped me take it from concept to daily practice, and an increasingly deeper understanding of how this practice is life transforming. The reality is, however, most people are completely unaware of the power of their thoughts, or even that they have the choice about what they think. They just go through life reacting to the events that unfold around them without giving any attention to the role their thoughts play in shaping their experiences. And even those of us who are aware of this concept, I have to admit, very often still live in reaction to people and circumstances based on unconscious and or autopilot default programming from our childhood, from our religious cultural conditionings, and or perhaps from traumatic life experiences. I like this explanation of a default belief from the Messiah's Handbook, Reminders for an Advanced Soul by Richard Bach. How many remember Illusions and the Messiah's Handbook? It was one of my first spiritual awakening books. Bach says, or the Messiah says, it's called the default belief when you agree to the rules before you think, when you go along because you're expected to. Think about how often we hear statements, or perhaps even make them, like, that's just who I am, or that's just how life is, or no one said life would be fair, or any other number of victim perspective proclamations that all reflect a belief that life happens to us. Now, taking control of our lives, which is what we're always attempting to do, right? Control our lives, and that's a kind of a shifty word because it's not really how it works. But when we consciously begin to co-create our reality by choosing the thoughts we have and recognizing their power on how we experience life, doing that means doing the work of self-reflection, including developing the ability to witness and evaluate our own cognitive, emotional, and behavioral processes, and then continuing the work of healing, correcting, releasing, and or reprogramming those processes, those beliefs, those attitudes that we find no longer work for us. And the one thing I liked out of Dr. Phil was his question, so how's that working for you? When someone tells you what's going on, but it's this, I believe this, and you go, well, how's that working for you? And that's a bottom line in unity. It's a practical expression. If it isn't working, it means we need to re-examine it and choose again. And that involves also practicing mindfulness. In essence, becoming aware of the things we tell ourselves on a daily basis, and whether they're positive, negative, or neutral. It's noticing if we dwell on our problems or focus on solutions. And underlying it all, discerning, as Einstein suggested, whether we see the world as a friendly place or hostile one. Or put another way, do we trust in the one presence and one power, God the good? It also requires developing emotional and spiritual maturity, which includes understanding and accepting the inevitable realities of life, like pain, struggles, and death. How many people do you know that got mad at God because a loved one of theirs died, as if any of us are going to escape death? You know, it's part of life, and we need to, when we have a healthy outlook, we incorporate that truth within our living. In fact, rather than thinking, when we do recognize that we're going to die, it actually helps us live more fully each day. What's optional in this process, however, is suffering. Remember, I often say pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. You might recall the lesson on renunciation from the Dalai Lama's cat series I shared earlier this year. And HHC, His Holiness's cat, learning that our greatest suffering is often self-inflicted due to our attachment to how we'd like things to be, and connecting that to a belief that our happiness, well-being, and peace of mind depends upon that outcome. Now, when we understand that our good is not dependent on outer conditions, but on the meaning we give them, we not only gain the capacity to shift our perspective, but we also open ourselves to a whole array of new possibilities. How many of you have been focused so much on wanting this thing to turn out this way that you're ignoring all of the possible blessings that are flying by you? Goes with that story about the guy on the roof in a flood, and he's praying to God to save him, and neighbors come by in a rowboat and ask him if he needs a ride, and he says, no, God's going to save me. And somebody else comes by on a surfboard paddling and offers him a ride, and he says, no, God's got this. I know he's going to save me. Finally, a helicopter comes and yells down to him, and he says, no, I've got this. God's going to save me. And, of course, he drowns. And when he gets to, as they say, the pearly gates, he said, what happened? And God said, I sent your neighbor's rowboat, the surfboard, and a helicopter. What were you looking for? So anyway. In short, the quality of our thoughts have a direct impact on the quality of our lives. To live a fulfilling and meaningful life, we must pay attention to the things we think about and focus our attention on every single day. In fact, every moment. Most of us don't do that, but as we practice mindfulness, what I find at least is I don't get distracted for as long a period of time. As soon as I start feeling suffering, it's a wake-up call to, wait a minute, how am I looking at this that I'm experiencing these feelings, so I then can shift. By developing our self-awareness and practicing mindful living, we create the ability to pause. That's really the gift. We create the ability to pause. And in that pause, we create the capacity to make a new, different, and conscious choice, opening ourselves to the possibility of creating an unprecedented future for ourselves rather than repeating our history. Again, as we begin to think with these new mindsets, we notice that our behavior shifts as well, because we live the truth we know. And just like we, mind action and living the truth we know, the fact is that's a principle that's working in our lives whether we're aware of it or not. So if we're not taking charge of our thoughts, we're still experiencing the effects of them, and we're still living according to them even when it's not working for us. The shift allows us to no longer view ourselves as victims of circumstance, and we become empowered to make a conscious choice and take intentional actions, trusting in ourselves and the universe. Now, one of the most powerful examples of how changing my thoughts changed my life was around my experience of prosperity, or more accurately, lack thereof. The wake-up call began when I read Lynn Twist's book, The Soul of Money, where she revealed two of our culture's default beliefs, not only as false, but destructive. Namely, there's never enough, and more is better. As she explains, for many of us, our first waking thought of the day is, I didn't get enough sleep. How many of you check your Fitbit? I check my Fitbit every morning to see how many hours I slept. Not so much, for me, it's just a reminder that I need to go to bed earlier, or I can turn over and go back to sleep and such, but it's still there, right? I'm still making a judgment of, did I get enough sleep? The next one is, I don't have enough time. Whether true or not, that thought of not enough occurs to us automatically before we ever even think to question or examine it. We spend most of the hours and days of our lives hearing, explaining, complaining, or worrying about what we don't have or don't get enough of. We don't get enough exercise. We don't have enough work. We don't have enough profit. We don't have enough power. We don't have enough wilderness. We don't have enough weekends. And of course, we don't have enough money ever. Add to this how our consumer society is constantly telling us that we're not thin enough, smart enough, pretty enough, fit enough, educated, successful, or rich enough ever. No matter what we have, we're constantly told we need more, or we need this new twist of what we already have. And if we allow ourselves to be programmed by it, we take it all in. Twist says this is at the heart of how we are literally, mindlessly destroying the planet that we and all of creation depend upon to live, with this autopilot belief that there's never enough and more is better. Even those of us that make conscious choices around that can suffer from those beliefs. I know just recently, as much as I practice this, when I found out I was going to have to replace the shower in my home because there was a leak behind the walls and there was no way to fix it without cutting a hole in the shower that was there, I started worrying, where am I going to be able to pay for that? How am I going to work on that? And I had to stop and pause and remember there's always enough. So, as I reflected on this teaching, which went straight to my heart as truth, even though I didn't yet fully understand it, I realized that for me, the idea of enough had always meant just enough to get by. It was how I grew up. We weren't poor, but there was seldom extra. Our vacations were camping trips. You know, I never flew on an airplane until I was an adult. And so I had learned and been programmed to equate enough with lack and worry. And while my circumstances changed when I graduated college and began a professional career, I found myself right back there when Rory and I entered ministry. Interesting, I think we often can change our circumstances but not change our true beliefs. They talk about people who win the lottery and very quickly, within a few years, they're back to where they started. Well, I think I also had unconscious beliefs about connecting spiritual service with a level of financial austerity. I was already reactive to the consumer society that we lived in. Even though Unity taught prosperity, that wasn't what I was experiencing, especially after Rory passed. So I started to work with and the church wasn't experiencing it either, right? So I started to work with my beliefs around what was enough and twist teachings that true abundance always flows from enough, never from more. I'm going to say that again. True abundance always flows from enough, never from more. And if you think about it, that makes sense because more is projecting something that we don't have. It's projecting a need or a want, and then what we're creating is need and want, not enough. So I began to affirm that there's always enough and live in gratitude for what I have rather than in fear of lack. And literally, my life transformed. Not just in my experience of it, but how I lived it. I realized I had enough to travel. I had enough to visit my kids in Cincinnati multiple times a year. I had I had a home. I had enough to both, as we say every Sunday during our offering, both to have and to share. And as I began, now it wasn't an overnight shift, but it was an immediate beginning that just kept growing as I practiced the principle. And as I shared my insights and continued to embrace and live into these ideas with our leadership council, UMB's finances also transformed. We went from wondering each month how we were going to get through to where we are today. And part of that was adding a category in our budget for unplanned, expected income. So we didn't know where it was going to come from, but we expected that there was always enough. And through ways that I could have never imagined, we could have never planned for, that's manifested beyond our wildest imagination. I remember changing the words of a Daniel Nahmod song where he sang, "There's more than enough for us to do these things," and we changed them to that there's always enough. We don't need to think about more than enough. That's also coming from lack. Like we need something beyond enough. And then we added similar words to our weekly offering statement. You can listen for them today when it's read. And again, because changing our assumptions, beliefs, and attitudes not only transform how we experience life, but how we live it, when we started focusing and appreciating what we already had in abundance in this community, which was faith and commitment and friendships and connection and creativity and fun, divine ideas began flowing, and we came up with our quarterly fundraisers, which not only raise money, but also increase our fellowship and community and our creativity and our fun. As Twist explains, when we listen, speak, and respond from the context of sufficiency, we access a new freedom and power in our relationship with money and with life. Now, the other major realization that deepened my understanding and application of these two principles that actually happened before this shift in prosperity was shifting my focus from manifestation to surrender. My early understanding of the law of mind action and living the truth was directed at creating, or more honestly, again, controlling life, from creating parking spaces to praying and affirming healing, especially when Rory was diagnosed with cancer. And while that practice definitely served to help me develop a capacity for mindfulness and consciously choosing where I focused my attention, as years passed and life as it does got more complicated, I realized that my thinking had little to no effect on the world around me. And I began struggling with how to integrate that realization into my understanding of our capacity to create our reality. And then Rory and I heard a speaker who talked about shifting his life focus. He was a CSL minister, or at that time it was called religious science minister, and how he had shifted his life focus from manifestation, which was what all New Thought was about, prosperity classes and treasure mapping and all of those kinds of things that we were exploring and practicing, from shifting from that kind of manifestation to surrender. And once again, a shift in my thinking changed my life. Specifically, surrendering meant that instead of trying to create and control how my life unfolded based on what I thought would be best, I surrendered my life to God, which I now understand is very much like the Buddhist teaching of accepting what is, knowing that outer circumstances have no control over my happiness, my well-being, or my peace of mind. I focused my attention and energy on aligning my thoughts and living with divine principles, which for me, I now have come to define as doing justice, loving kindness, and walking humbly with my God. Trusting that whatever shows up is inherently, essentially, always for my highest good, meaning for my spiritual evolution. I know this shift in consciousness has allowed me to move through the pain of loss and the challenges that have come through my life and past. Always they come to pass. They never come to roost because I don't let them. I start looking for the lessons and how I can grow through them, because even in the pain, I'm focused on finding those lessons, affirming that there are blessings, and trusting that there is good in everything. Bottom line is, mind action is all about our perspective. And I choose to trust that God is good all the time. Namaste. So I invite you to just get comfortable in your seat. If it works for you, put your feet flat on the floor and feel that connection and grounding with Mother Earth. I often roll my shoulders to release any tension in my neck or shoulders. You might even want to shake out any energy that you're feeling so that you can begin to settle into this now moment. Focusing on your breath, breathing in, God is here. And breathing out, I am home. Again, God is here. And I am home. Meditation is one of the places that we learn and practice mindfulness. Not by doing it perfectly, but by increasing our awareness. So this morning we're going to do just a simple, short meditation where we invite a loving thought into our consciousness, where we identify God is love and I am love. And just begin to dwell on that thought for a few moments. And in the silence, as you dwell on that thought, I invite you to open that higher self, that observing self, that Christ awareness. And when your mind tends to drift, and it will, allow that higher observer to remind yourself to bring your thoughts back to this principle of love, to this grounding in our own inner peace. So for a few moments in the silence, choose a mantra that works for you, and then let it go and be in the silence and observe.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful
So this meditation time was short enough that maybe some of you were able to keep your focus. What I know is often when I sit down to meditate, even within the first minute or two, my mind shifts and jumps to what I need to do after. If I remember to turn off the stove, any number of thoughts can flow through. The phone call I need to make, any number of things can interrupt that silence. And that is not a failure of meditation. That is the essence of sitting in the silence, noticing each time our thoughts drift away from our focus and bringing them back. And as we practice that in meditation, we increase that capacity, that ability to live mindfully so that we can begin to observe those thoughts and interruptions in our daily living and remember to pause and choose where we want to focus our attention. So for these life-transforming teachings, I am so grateful. I give thanks for how my life has been transformed and continues to transform when I work the principles. And so for all of this, for this loving community and this opportunity to grow and live together, we say thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
And so it is.
Where you want it.
Yeah, it's okay. Unity of Monterey Bay is the collective consciousness and commitment of all of us who give of our time, treasure, and talent in order to sustain this spiritual community that is dedicated to transforming lives. We know that prosperity is a state of mind that finds blessings in every situation and abundance in joyous generosity. We transform all appearance of fear or lack into faith-filled peace of mind by shifting our attention to thoughts of gratitude for the abundance of God's good in our lives. As the ushers now come forward, I invite you to think of something specific that you're grateful for in this moment. And now, with our hearts and minds overflowing with gratitude, we breathe into the divine flow of God's good, trusting that we are enough, that we have enough, and that there always is enough to both have and share. For those of you that give online through our website, we have set up monthly auto payments from your bank or give by credit card. We are grateful and ask that you join us in faith and gratitude as we pass the offering baskets this morning. By holding and blessing the basket as it passes to you. Okay. And now please join me in our offertory blessing. I am an open channel for God's infinite good. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies everything I give and everything I receive. I am both blessed and a blessing. Thank you, God.
I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts that changes the things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts. I have the power to change my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts that changes the things that change my life. I am the cannot be defined. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts that changes the things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts. I have the power to change my life. If you ask me who am I am beauty, I am joy, I am more than meets the eye. I cannot be defined. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts that changes the things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts. I have the power to change my life. I can choose to be the light that brightens someone's darkest night. It's so much more than meets the eye. I cannot be defined. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts that changes the things that shape my life. I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts. I have the power to change my life. I have the power to change my life.
Before I bless these offerings, I just want to, I'm aware that all the words we use in our services are very conscious and chosen. And it's what it means. I don't know how many of you have read the Four Agreements, but to be impeccable with our word doesn't just mean that we don't lie and we keep our word when we speak to someone. It means that we're impeccable with the words we use because they determine our life experience. So I appreciate how when we all bring that consciousness to these words and we say them together, they just expand in their power in becoming our default setting. So it is with great joy that we bless and give thanks for these gifts and offerings that demonstrate our collective commitment to the spiritual work of love and transformation in our lives and in the world. We dedicate this offering, our lives, and this ministry to more fully expressing the Christ light that is the truth of our being, and inviting all people to know God's love. Finally, knowing that one with God, all things are possible, we affirm together, the good is now, the rest is blessed, and the best is yet to be in our lifetime gently. Thank you, God. Even that last affirmation, we kept adding pieces to it as we realized the best is yet to be, puts it out in the future. So we added in our lifetime to bring it into this now present time. And then I brought this lesson when we went to ministerial school. They warned us to be very careful about praying for transformation. Because when you pray for transformation, it comes. And it may not come in the design or the plan you had for it. In fact, it often comes like slam. So we added gently so that we are clear and impeccable about our intention of what we're putting out there in the world. So we want to thank our musicians, the singers and composers Sue Riley, Daniel Namod, and Linda Hogan, and of course our awesome music team led by Denise Hedlund with Sue and Robin and John. Our announcements, check the e-blast, as we always tell you, and you should have gotten when you came in today a little lavender handout that is an update of now the dates for you to save and look at, and we'll just cover some of them. Our summer dinners continue. Marianne and Sue's barbecue on October 28th is now has a sign-up sheet in the bookstore. The two other dinners that are already sold out are about to happen. I want to invite you to, if you think that it's daunting to host one of these things, you can get creative. Over the years, we've had ice cream socials, mystery dinners, game nights, movie nights, where all you have to provide are some snacks and such, picnics. You can partner with someone to share the work. And so I just invite you, this is one of our primary fundraisers, and I invite you to just think about how you might participate in that. And you can sign up in Sacred Grounds or email unityofmonterey@gmail.com. Again, you get to choose the date, the theme, the size, the ticket price, the structure of it, all of it, and we'll advertise and sell the tickets. It's a win-win for you and our community and for our church. Our new member orientation discussions continue today after the service and next week. Highway cleanup is also today after the service. Martha, find Martha and the coordinate. You'll go meet out at the, what is it now, a Shell station? It keeps changing what kind of station, out at the Shell station. And we are grateful to everybody who participates in that. Again, you can do it once or twice or become part of the team that does it monthly. Did anybody? Nope. No, he was there yesterday. So it's important that we get out there so that we get our stipend as well. So we're grateful for anybody who wants to help. Sign up will be coming next week for our 25th silver anniversary banquet and auction. It's going to be on Tuesday, September 19th. The tickets are $135 a piece for dinner and dancing and the auction. Angel tickets are always available, so never let finances stop you from attending. If you just talk to one of us about that, and we can arrange for angel tickets for all or part of the ticket. And we are collecting auction items now. This is September 19th is going to be here before we know it. I was looking at the date and I went, oh my, this is not in the future. It's like around the corner. So we're excited about getting it together. And as it approaches, if we need help and teams for setting up and such, we'll be inviting you to do that as well. Again, it's going to be at Bayonet Black Horse, the golf course out there. And Tuesday night means that we don't have to pay any fees for the building and such, which saves us about $1,000. That allows that to go into our fundraising rather than paying for the location. Also, Women's Retreat is May 24th and 26th of next year, and there are still, I think, about 6 spaces. We're limited to 25 total, so sign up in the Sacred Grounds, and be sure you put your email there, because I'll start sending out emails as we start getting closer to the date of that about what it will entail and getting further commitment. About a month out, we have to have an actual commitment of numbers and such to determine the final costs. Finally, next Sunday at 5 p.m., Michelle is going to be starting UMB's Church of the Wild at Via Paraiso Park in the upper picnic grounds at 5 p.m. It's a new way to worship and encounter spirit and nature. Through reading, song, quiet contemplation, and sharings, we will seek to reclaim our relationship with the natural world and this experience of spirit in that. So, and also, Denise Rosier, who now has sent me her, you want to press the button, John? For those of you who aren't sure who Denise is, there she sent me her promotional set. She's going to be here with us August 6th, which is also just around the corner. And she's going to be not only speaking and doing music at our service, but is then going to do a concert at noon after. We're going to have some snacks and such available so that you don't starve, but you can just stay and enjoy her concert. You've heard so many of her songs. Almost every song Michelle sings is a Denise Rosier song. Her albums have changed my life, and she's the recipient of numerous awards and such in New Thought, and has a goal of taking these New Thought concepts through her music beyond the walls of New Thought churches, and so that they start affecting the world, as only music can do. So you don't want to miss that, and bring your friends. So as we bring our service to a close, we're grateful that you've all joined us here, live or virtually. Whether it's your first time or you're regular. We hope that we've made you feel at home in our Unity of Monterey Bay community, knowing that wherever you are on your spiritual path, you are welcome here. And if it's your first time with us, be sure to pick up a packet of information at the back of the church. They're leaning right against the wall there. Our chaplain today is Sue, and she's available to pray with you in person, and will be up front here so that you know where to find her. You can use prayer rooms, or you can just ask her to hold a thought or a prayer with you right on the spot. You can also fill out prayer request forms that are in the pews and put them in the wooden box that it's also right there as you go out the door. Those are also prayed over by our chaplains, who then also forward them to Silent Unity, where they're prayed on for an additional 30 days. So we are definitely a well-prayed church. So, of course, you can also call Silent Unity directly if you feel it, or send an email prayer request through our website. So now it's time to make our circle for our prayer and peace song. So I invite you to bring to mind any prayer requests that you have on your heart. I, of course, invite us all to pray for Alexander's quick recovery. Glad that it was caught quickly and resolved relatively easily. I also ask for your prayers for my daughter Bree, who is traveling to Guatemala. And Guatemala is experiencing some challenges right now. And last night she was saying, pray for things to settle down. She was leaving 12 hours from then. I have not talked to her this morning. I don't know what her final decision was, but there's supposed to be a big demonstration about the election they just had and such. So anyway, hold my daughter Bree in your prayers as well for safety. And let's just all take a deep breath in and let it out, as we just know the truth and join in our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, and we all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be